Hello, everyone. MTL Sports here. On episode 130. NFL Week 11. We'll recap that. Some good games, some not good games. A lot of things to discuss there. Plus, two big fights this weekend. Surprisingly, one on Friday night wasn't so good, but Saturday night UFC 309 MSG. I think it's like the second biggest fight gate at MSG. So shout out to them. But we'll recap that. Plus, we might sprinkle in some other things. So all that being said, guys, stay tuned. Lawrence, let's start with Thursday. Now we had the Commanders versus Eagles. Battle for first place in this pretty much just a two-man race in the NFC East because it's been a bad year for both the Giants and them boys. But we'll get to that later. How'd you feel about this Thursday night game up in Philly?
It was kind of depressing. It felt like as if the Commanders started off perfectly fine to make some noise in this game, and then they just fell off as soon as the game. It seemed like whatever the first quarter ended, it just seemed like they never got going again. There was drives here or there, but nothing flashy, nothing too out of the ordinary from the offense. It just seemed like it just became lackluster. And honestly, they just never put their foot to the pedal, and it was a boring game. I fell asleep halfway through, and I didn't even see the fourth quarter comeback. So,
yeah, I mean, you basically laid it out pretty well. Commanders didn't play too well. Neither did the Eagles until really the second half. If we really want to be honest here, the Eagles finally, I feel like, took it serious in the second half. We knew going into the game that the Washington defense wasn't good, especially when we talk about their run defense wasn't very good. So they finally put the pedal to the metal. Barkley ran pretty well. Jalen Hurts ran a lot too, surprisingly. A lot of scrambles. He had the little tush push when they got to the 1 yard line. But yeah, I think for me, it felt like the Eagles were just playing with them, and then they finally were like, "All right, let's end this one." And then the Commanders, a lot of Commanders fans out there, Lawrence, they think because Jaden got hurt a couple weeks ago. Remember, he was questionable to play that game against Caleb Williams, and so he's been playing ever since. A lot of Commanders fans say that the rib injury is kind of what's been leading to his kind of not poor play, but not up to the standard that he has been playing the past. I mean, to start the season, he's been playing unbelievable, but now he's kind of come back to earth. Do you feel like that's the reason, or do you think he's actually starting to play good teams? You play the Bears, they got a good defense. Then you play the Steelers, they got a good defense. Now you play the Eagles, they got a good defense. Do you feel like it's that, or do you feel like it's the injury?
I just think he's playing better teams. I mean, the hype really started when they just scored in constant concessions without punting. And one of those games was against the Giants. Then they played the Panthers. And then they played the Giants again. And then they played the Bears, who all they are an offense. They don't really have all they have is a defense. They don't have an offense. So he got in a position where he was just playing bad teams. I mean, you can say it for the Bengals game as well when they play in week 2. I mean, everyone had that far and out and beyond, Bengals win no matter what.
Yeah,
and
true.
The Bengals defense was just bad, and he's getting playing teams that have stronger defenses. His ribs probably hurt, but I mean, pretty much everyone's body is hurting at this point in the season. So, I mean, if he wasn't able to play, I'm pretty confident they wouldn't be playing him. Because the advantage they have at their point in the season, unlike most NFC teams, they have a winning record, so there's not a whole lot to be afraid of at the moment.
Yeah, and they still have a fairly easy schedule ahead of them, so think you're right. If he was really that hurt, they wouldn't play him. Mariota looked good in some backup minutes, so it's not hard to believe that Mariota couldn't have won them a game or two. But we'll see going forward. It might be something to keep our eyes on. 1:00 games Sunday. To be honest, I didn't watch too many of these 1:00 games because they were boring.
The only one that I watched remotely at all was the Bears and the Packers. It's just such a Bears thing to think you're just going to go down there and kick a field goal and everything's going to be all hunky-dory. Instead
Another blocked field goal.
But also, I think there was a lot of questionable plays by Green Bay throughout that game, especially with like 11 minutes left. It's 4th and goal from like the 7-yard line, so you're not even like that close. And they go for it. They didn't get it. But my thing is that you had just kicked the field goal. I mean, you're not even allowing the Bears to be in that position.
Yep.
And the Bears immediately started driving down the field. As soon as they got that missed field goal, they started driving the field. They took off a lot of time off the clock. Green Bay was fortunate enough to get the ball back and drive down very quick and get a touchdown. But at what cost? If you had just kicked the field goal earlier in the game, it's now 23-19. And there is no, okay, they can just get in field goal range and win the game. Green Bay got bailed out by, I guess, the Bears' lack of a special teams, because it was a really bad kick and it was a really bad block attempt. I mean, all of it was just
it was bad.
Bears season in a nutshell.
Yeah, hate to see it. But if we're gonna be honest, the Bears started off hot and then they definitely came back to earth. I feel like, this is just
I think it's another thing for them. They played bad teams. Everyone thought they were kind of good, but you're beating up on bad teams.
Yeah, and that's for sure.
And it's kind of more so about when you play those teams in season. I mean, you played some of these bad teams at their lowest of being bad. I mean, if you go back and play some of those teams now, it's a different story.
Yeah, it was a lot of high hopes for Chicago. I know a lot of people had them making the playoffs. A lot of them had, I think a lot of books had the over-under at 8.5 wins. A lot of people took that. Hey, I said don't touch it because I didn't believe that much in the Bears, especially, the offensive line was still bad. They didn't address that. And now here we are, week 11. We're talking about, hey, how bad their line is. And Caleb Williams either holds on to the ball too long and gets sacked, or his line collapses and gets sacked. There's no in between. So I'm not shocked at this outcome. But yeah, two block field goals for the win and back-to-back weeks. I don't think I've seen this ever happen in an NFL season. So something crazy is going on. Yeah, but like I said, I didn't really watch the 1:00 games. All of them were pretty boring. I had them on, but in reality, I mean, Ravens Steelers, I'll talk about that one. If there's one team that's really geared to beat the Ravens, it's the Steelers. I think just because Steelers defense all around is pretty decent. I know their run defense is pretty good. But, I mean, honestly, if we look at the stats, I mean, King Henry had only 13 carries. He had 65 yards, so he was averaging 5 yards a carry. I know he fumbled early in the game, but why not use King Henry on that when you're going for two? Why not use King Henry? I was really puzzled. And that play call,
they didn't have anyone,
I didn't like that play call.
Well, they didn't have anyone.
And when they came out the timeout, Lawrence, they just flipped the play to did you notice they just flipped the play from right to left? I was like, bro, you're not fooling anyone. It's the same formation. You just flipped it around. I'm like, this is not going to work. This is not going to work. I don't know.
Yeah, but even when Lamar broke out to the left, there was nobody to throw the ball to on the left side. So it was clear as day he's running it. And he's trying to give the idea he's going to throw it. But all the defensive guys already know that nobody ran a route to that area. So who are you even trying to fool right now?
Well, it looked like he was going to do the jump pass. He was going to run, and then how he gives up last. But there, like you said, no one was there. But even before that timeout was called, he was going to do the same thing, but to the right. So that's what I'm saying. Like, why do you think flipping the play to the left is really like they really going to fool somebody? Like, this is the NFL, not college. Like, they're not dumb. Questionable play calling. I mean, honestly, if King Henry is averaging 5 yards to carry, you should honestly give him the ball. You know, when they pass more than they run, they tend to lose this season. Honestly, in the past couple of seasons, they've tend to lose if Lamar passes more than the team runs as a whole. So they already know it's not a good recipe for success, but yet here we are, you know, and they're pretty much in all their losses. They lost because they just get too pass happy. And I understand you want Lamar to win his second MVP or back-to-back MVPs, but at what cost?
Nah, who cares
When you
about
have
MVP?
when you have a chance to at least be a top 2 seed, now the top 2 seed is probably out your grasp. You're probably going to be a wild card at this point. I don't see the Steelers slowing down anytime in the near future. So you're kind of just setting yourself up for at best a 5th seed. So I don't know. The Ravens, I wasn't high on the Ravens to begin with, but I know Justin Tucker missed 2 field goals. Not, you know, he's missed a couple this year. That's not routine of him. But even still, this is I wasn't high on the Ravens, and this just kind of proves my point that, you know, they're good, but I don't know if they're good enough to actually make noise.
It's that defense. It's just the defense is too bad. Even when they have an off game like this, defense couldn't stop them from getting on the field to get a field goal. I mean, the defense was blessed at one point to where it was the second down play and Justin Fields takes a run for it. You know, they're calling their timeouts. They're trying to get the ball back, and he slides down
A yard early.
Yeah, a yard early. Okay, that is all you need. You got to go make a play. You got to go make a stop. Didn't even look like the defensive line even gave an effort. I mean, they were pushed back so fast. He got that 1 yard before it even mattered and just laid there. It was sad. Defense just sucked.
Yeah, I mean, pass defense definitely, because pass defense is last in the league. Last time I checked, run defense, I'm pretty sure it's top 5. I think this is only like the second or third time they've allowed a team to rush over 100 yards. So, I mean, it's kind of off balance. Like, yeah, you can stop the run, but in a passing league, people can just pass on you all day. And most teams do have a decent quarterback, so they can get the job done there. So I'm with you. Like, the defense is good in spots, but not in totality, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So they still have to play each other again, so we'll see if the outcome stays the same in Baltimore. But moving on, I think we got 4:00 games. To be honest, I didn't watch the Falcons Broncos. That was a shit show from the jump. Do you want to say anything about the Broncos Falcons game?
No, I didn't watch it. I mean, you want me to be honest with you? I didn't watch. All I watched was Chiefs and Bills because I'd like to believe that most of America were Bills fans last night. Or yesterday afternoon. I mean,
Yeah.
this should have been on every household, and it should have been some voodoo going on to make sure the Chiefs couldn't cheat their way into another win. That catch on third down that they didn't even review after the 2-minute warning, he didn't catch that ball. The refs were trying their best to help the Chiefs, and the Bills got an interception. It's honestly crazy that it wasn't called back due to pass interference of some sort or somewhere around the field.
Yeah, I mean, I watched the second half of this game. Yeah, I mean, we've seen this in past years where, okay, the Bills play well against the Chiefs in the regular season. Come postseason, it's a different story, right? I think the Chiefs are undefeated against the Bills in the postseason since the Josh Allen Mahomes era. But I'm surprised at the outcome. I mean, Josh Allen didn't have Cooper or Coleman.
He had Cooper.
Didn't have Kincaid either. He just put the team on his back, limited his mistakes. I I mean, honestly, carry the team on his back with his legs, with his arm. Shakir catches anything that's in his vicinity. Shout out to him. Curtis Samuel played well. Or I guess they did have Cooper. Cooper's up on the box score. They didn't have Coleman, didn't have Kincaid.
They lost Knox.
I think this is the first time a team scored 30 on the Chiefs this year, or I think in actually like 2 years, which says a lot about their defense. The Bills definitely took this personal. They want to show that they can beat the champs. No one wants to see the Chiefs go back to back to back. And honestly, the Bills are probably our best shot of not allowing that to happen. Because I mean, I'll ask you right now, Lawrence. Do you see any team through 11 weeks, other than the Bills, that can stop the Chiefs? Because I mean, I'm looking at this after this game. I'm thinking, yep, the Bills are probably the only team that I actually trust to do it.
I can trust. I think, like a deep trust. No, like if I'm like deeply putting a lot of faith. No. Do I think there's some candidates? Yes, I think the Broncos can do it. I think the first game should have proven that the Broncos get the Chiefs at home one more time this season. I think the Broncos can make a lot of noise at home. They were close the first time being at home. Bo Nix keeps getting better week after week. We'll have a few more weeks of getting some more stuff under his belt. I think the Steelers, if you're going postseason, I think the Steelers have enough defensively to cause a lot of problems. However, it's going to be based on how the refs call the game to whether or not they can limit the Steelers' defense. I mean, outside of that, I think the only team that can even give them a shot out of the AFC is the Texans. Texans got to be fully healthy, and that defense has got to be prepared because that's the only team I think can put up enough points. I think we've seen time and time after again, the Ravens just, especially their pass defense, I just don't have faith in it, stopping Mahomes enough times. And no one else that's even going to have a chance to make it in is going to have a pitcher's chance. Like I don't think the Dolphins, that they snuck in somehow, some way, I don't think they will, but they don't have a shot. No one really. It's just candidates. There's opportunities that could be had, but it is a surefire thing. No, and the Chiefs' schedule from the rest of the way out, it's just so easy.
Yeah. So I mean, we might see them lose another game or two, but I feel like at this point, like I said, easy schedule to close out the year. They have already had the bye week, right? So, I mean, look, Panthers, Raiders, Chargers, Browns, Texans, Steelers. Maybe 2 more losses, like maybe to Texans, Steelers, maybe they'll or anyone, like they probably will lose like 2 of these 3, maybe. But other than that, you're looking at them probably being the number 1 seed. It's going to be between them and the Buffalo. So, someone has to do it. I think the Bills can do it. I did watch the what was the game? Oh, the Seahawks 49ers. Now, if you guys do remember, on Thursday's episode, I said, hey, take that spread. I believe in Geno. Lawrence didn't believe in Geno, but I did. I told you, hey, Geno, keep it close enough to at least get at least for them to cover. I think the cover was 6.5, and Geno led a damn good comeback. Lawrence, I know you don't trust him too much, but
No, Geno
took care of the ball, made plays with his legs, especially that 13-yard run to get that touchdown. 49ers, they're stumbling out the gate. They're 5-5. I think they're 1-4 or 1-3 in the division now. So they definitely won't win the division. They'll have to sneak in as a wild card if they'll even do that. Any thoughts on the game, Lawrence?
No, it just plays perfectly into what I said about the Cardinals sneaking their way in as the number 1 seed. Because I was high on the Cardinals, should have been a little higher than I was, but didn't have enough confidence in him. But each week, it just kind of goes to show that the 49ers, as good as they are, there's just something wrong. And I'm sorry to say, but it just feels like Purdy doesn't do enough.
Yeah, I feel like for me, and I noticed this last year, if he has at least one weapon out, he just looks very average. Like, and maybe average is a little bit of a knock on him. He looks very like slightly above average. Like he's definitely better than your Daniel Jones. He's played better than Trevor Lawrence. Let's be honest. He's played better than Trevor Lawrence. But he's still like a level below. Even if we go like the Herbie, he's below Herbie. Like honestly, if we're being honest, he's probably below Dak. He's probably I'll put him below Kyler. Like Kyler's balling out this year. Like he's on that like C tier. And I think for the 49ers, they have so many weapons that when they're all healthy, yeah, he's playing like an A tier quarterback. But you lose one, he drops a tier. You lose two, he drops 2 tiers. Like I don't know. The jury's still out on him. I'm not as confident as some of these QB gurus that want to proclaim him early, like they did last year. And if he was that good, they wouldn't be 5-5. I tell you that.
No, especially some guy who gets a lot of hate, Justin Herbert, about being on the, block of is he good, is he bad? I mean, Herbie came through last night. Herbert looks like a completely different quarterback when Harbaugh is the coach.
Yep.
Which just makes you honestly, Joe Burrow this year looks like Herbert does in past years.
Yeah, that's a good segue, Lawrence. Sunday Night Football. Bengals lose again. Not shocked. Last second drive by the Chargers. Because the game was tied 27-27. Evan Money McPherson. Let's not call him that again. Evan missed 2 field goals this game. One that would put them up 27-30, and then he missed. Probably would have been the game-winning one with like a minute something left. It was like a 48-yarder or something. Missed that one too. And then they get the ball. They drive down the field. What was it? J.K. Dobbins scored that touchdown late, and then, they just didn't get into the end zone after that. So, tell me your thoughts, Lawrence, and then I'll go.
I think my thoughts of this game came down to kicking and honestly coaching. I think it's one of those things again. The Bengals players did everything correctly on the field. Everything looked right. They had a bad first half, but came back and did a good job. The defense stepped up second half, but it just didn't seem like it mattered. Because when it comes down to like a late game situation, and honestly, I don't get it either. But like the whole second half, you're doing a good job tackling. The defense, the safeties, and secondary doesn't look like. What's the best word for it? Confused, and idiotic of stupid penalties like they were in the first half. And then they just revert back to whatever they were doing in the first half on the last drive. But I think you have to give some of that to Herbert. I mean, he was just kind of just smart with the ball, and took what the Bengals gave him the whole time, and the Bengals gave him a lot of things.
A lot.
And the J.K. Dobbins run, I mean, that's where it came in for the missed tackles. I mean, you did such a good job all second half, and then you just blew it at the very end. It honestly feels like it was on purpose, as if they want this coach fired, as if they want to prove that like, yeah, see, like we could have won this game, but I want this guy gone because this guy sucks. And if I keep winning, then he's gonna stick around, and if he sticks around, then we're just gonna waste all of our talent. And honestly, at this point in time, you got to have a coach that's out there fighting for T. Higgins to stay on the roster because, I'm not trying to say the team's going to look completely different with an overhaul, but you can sure as hell bet that it's not going to be as easy as it was yesterday. trying to make comebacks without T. Higgins. Because there was about, 2 drives in the first half when T. Higgins got hurt, that he wasn't in there, that it was just like, okay, let's just double team Chase and we'll see what happens. And Chase went silent. Not a whole lot of step up from the rest of the players on the Bengals. That's kind of why the first half ended so lackluster for him.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. I've been saying this all year. Defense can't play a complete game. You see them play good for like a quarter and a half, if we count the third quarter, and probably about half of the fourth quarter. Probably a little bit more than half. Probably like until like the last 2 minutes of the fourth. Because you gotta include that last drive where the defense just completely they just gave up. Kind of like you said, I have feelings too that this defense wants Zach Taylor fired. I feel like a lot of people, especially if you listen to the post game comments by a lot of the players, you look at some of the sideline interactions that he has with the players, it's clear that they're fed up with him. One of the reporters asked Chase like something about play calling, and he was like, "You need to ask Zach." Like he asked the coaches, like, "I'm the player, I play. You need to ask the coaches that. That's their job. My job is to play." So there's a little there's that. There's Joe. Some of his answers, you can tell he's pissed. He's very upset.
He's fatigued.
He's tired of getting beat up. He's tired of losing. He's tired of putting up MVP numbers. I mean, the guy is on pace to put up 4,000 yards, 40 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions.
Did you see this?
Any other year, he'd be the MVP. But this year, he's 4-7.
He's got 9 touchdowns against the Bengals and lost both games. And the Steelers have 0 touchdowns against the Ravens. Oh, sorry. He has 9 touchdowns against the Ravens and has 0 wins. The Steelers have 1 win against the Ravens and 0 touchdowns.
So a lot of this just puts it all in his perspective. I think, I was thinking about it. I was very upset last night. Very upset all today. Still am very upset as we're recording. I'm just dwelling on it. I'm just like, you know what? Like, this roster is pretty much the same as last year, minus a couple pieces, minus DJ Reader, minus Mixon, maybe minus another player. But you add a right tackle and Mims. You sign Ford. You sign Zach Moss. He's not gonna play anymore, but you sign Zach Moss. You draft a couple players, whatever. The roster last year went 9-8 without Burrow for like most of the season, right? I think what's his name? Jake Browning.
Mm-hmm.
He went 500 with the roster. Flip it to next year, you have a 4th place schedule, pretty much the same roster, plus or minus a couple people, and you're 4-7. And Joe's playing better than he was last year, and he's healthy. Like, it doesn't make sense. And I feel like when you look at it from that perspective, it's definitely coaching, number one. And then you look at number 2, it's definitely the front office. And for whatever reason, they keep operating like this team is in the 80s. Like, I'm not going to harp on it too much, but, it's clear that it's not the players. It's the coaching plus the front office. I think those 2 aspects put together is why you're seeing a 4-7 team. And it's pretty disappointing. A lot of people are pissed in the Bengals fandom. I see it on Twitter all the time. A lot of people want Zach Taylor gone. I think the only reason why you won't see that happen, like, I think it's a 50-50 chance at this point, Lawrence. And that's mainly because there's just a lot of idiots out there that like Zach Taylor for whatever reason. And they keep saying it's not his fault, and it's more on Old Man Lou. I mean, Old Man Lou's part of the problem, but I mean, Zach Taylor, you make the hires. Like, come on now. You're involved with some of the personnel decisions. Like, come on now. Like, at the end of the day, it looks like you lost the locker room. You lost confidence in the fans. To me, it's time to go, but it took, 15 years for them to get rid of Marvin Lawrence? So, I mean, it's not looking too good over here.
But didn't Marvin Lewis keep winning, though? That was kind of the difference. He kept getting to the playoffs, and that was kind of the big problem with trying to get rid of him. It was kind of like, if we get rid of him, we're probably not going back to the playoffs.
I think that was a fear. I think part of that was, he kept getting to playoffs. Like, he would have a bad team, have a bad year, and the next year he'll bounce back. He's like, oh, okay, Marvin Lewis isn't a bad coach, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think we look at Zach Taylor, and like I said, the roster is pretty much the same, minus a couple people. And you're not gonna make the playoffs again, and it's pretty obvious you lost the locker room. I don't know. The Bengals, they operate different than any other NFL franchise. And as a fan, as a supporter of the team, you can wish all you want, but the Brown family they just gonna do what they want to do. So, but I mean, the loss isn't on Burrow. The loss isn't on Chase. It's not on T. I mean, I don't think it's on the offense. I think it's mostly coaching and defense.
You said it best.
Let's move on. UFC 309. Jones. What's the other guy's name? Miocic? Am I saying that right? Miocic. We saw this at one of our favorite bars. Lawrence, how do you feel this card went? Now, I know at the bar we said, this is probably one of the worst cards we've seen in a while.
Yeah, it was pretty bad.
How do you, it's been a couple of days. Do you still have that feeling?
I thought the matchups had chances to be good. It just, I don't know, it just didn't pan out very well on paper or on screen. I think the biggest kicker of the night was Bo Nickel's lack of a performance. Bo Nickel and Paul Craig, in my opinion, kind of killed the card. Because we had some cool prelim fights that kind of came out of nowhere. Jim Miller's submission was amazing. Ramiz basically retiring Mickey Gall. Not retiring him, but he's fired from the UFC. He's not fighting again. So, like, my parlay was doing amazing until that Bo Nickel TKO did not happen. It was a decision. Should have bet decision, but we're not watching a fight for decisions. Oliveira, I think he could have been a little bit more entertaining against Chandler. It just kind of felt like he figured out that if I just kind of smother him, it'll work. So they would spend first 2 minutes on the ground on the feet beating each other up, and then take it to submission, pretty much time and time in. It was questionable in terms of entertainment value, but it was a good fight nonetheless. I mean, Chandler almost had his moment in the 5th.
Yeah.
But the Paul Craig and Bo Nickel one, I feel like it just took all the air out of it. And I think the only thing that could have salvaged the fight, which is why I bet on it, and I had a good night over it, was that John Jones knockout or a John Jones submission. Pretty much John Jones had to end this man Saturday night, in order for this card to have any kind of value. If that had gone to decision and it looked kind of boring, I think Dana White's kind of in the hot seat. Donald Trump does not just show up to a fight night, a UFC pay-per-view, and all your main event is just trash after trash after trash. Because Mario Rufy, he was supposed to knock that man out. Like, it was like minus 200 for him to knock that man out. And he looked boring and didn't do a whole lot. And in some ways he could have lost.
I agree.
But and then the second fight, Silva, in my opinion, won, and they called it a unanimous decision. And then I still look over the fight. Yeah, it was a boring as hell fight. But
we were eating our food during that fight.
But Silva still won that fight. She just was way more active. She threw more. She did more damage. But they gave it to the other woman in a unanimous decision, which I thought, split, I would have been like, okay, whatever, a little bit of robbery. But a complete unanimous, outright, she got robbed.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said, especially that Bo Nickel Paul Craig fight. I think you were kind of hyping it up,
It was
but
supposed
that
to
was
be
a boring ass
entertaining.
fight.
It was so boring.
It was clear two guys who probably respected each other a fair deal, and I guess whatever they did in camp for however long their fight camp was, you know, they just said, hey, the other guy is just too good at wrestling. Just stay on your feet and just try to get points that way. But it didn't make to a good fight. And I'm gonna ask you again, Lawrence. I asked this question on Saturday night. To me, I don't think model, this system of the UFC is sustainable. Um, just because you got, I get injuries happen, and I get people going to drop out. Your champions are going to drop out. Some champions are going to refuse to fight other people, and they probably should. Yada yada yada. But we've had more bad cards this year, I want to say, than good, and I don't think that's a good trend that you want going into next year. And now, and Dana already announced the 310 card, and it's shaping up to be worse than this one. So I'm gonna ask you again, do you think this model of the UFC is sustainable? Because at this current moment, I'm gonna be honest, I don't think it is.
I think they're fighting. I think like main cards, like main pay-per-view events, they're too constant. They need to be more spread out, and they need to stack them each time, because people want to pay for something. And yeah, you're gonna get the occasional call out, but if I have two championship fights every fight night, or sorry, pay-per-view, and I lose one of the two champions, like, that's fine. Like, as long as you get someone in there who is deserving of the fight, not just some random guy. What you're alluding to, like 310, just some Asian, Japanese guy who's looked kind of good, who's not even ranked. Like, why is he stepping in the fight? And like, it's
Mind you, he never fought in the UFC before.
You have a month to find somebody to fight. I mean, Tom Aspinall was literally the backup for the main event last night or Saturday night. Like, you can get Aspinall to be the backup, but you're telling me I give you a month's notice, and the best you can do is some unranked guy in the UFC just immediately stepping into for a title fight, and there was no one else along the whole entire way. I mean, like, Kai Kara France has looked kind of good recently. His last fight was quick. You're telling me that, like, the number 5th ranked guy is saying no to a title fight? I doubt it. I bet you Kai Kara France would fight him. I get there's some other guys who are, fighting on that card, or, I mean, you can literally switch someone else who's a contender from that fight up to that main event, and then plug in the Japanese guy right there. I mean, I don't have a problem with that, but it's. I think they just need to pack the pay-per-views more, and that's what it takes. Like, just have more fight nights. Don't make us pay for it. I mean, I don't pay for it half the time. I either I either go to a bar. I find a nice little viewing ship, and I go from there. But I mean, paying for these things is outrageous. When, especially for last night's card, like, you're just bored until the co-main and main event. Like, if you watch this card, like, you were bored until the co-main event. And then there was parts of the co-main event where you were also still bored. Oliveira had him on the ground, and they just didn't do anything.
Nope.
But Oliveira at some points had him on the ground and was doing things. So you can't really get mad at Oliveira because, he did off and on beat him up. It's not like watching Bilal Muhammad fight where it's just all hug you and cuddle you and hold you down.
Yep.
But I think that's also something they need to look at. Scoring for those kind of fights. If all you're gonna do is hug it out, like we've already said before, you just can't be allowed to get points. I get it. You held him for 4 minutes, but you held him for 4 minutes and did 20 punches in 4 minutes. with no submission attempts.
Yep.
You didn't do anything.
Me didn't do anything. Yeah, no, I agree. We've been saying that for at least a couple months now. Ever since probably 307. So we're at 309, 310s next month. Yeah, I agree with you. I think, this will never happen, but, it'd be best if they reduce the pay-per-views and just have an extra fight night, every month. The UFC doesn't need to be on every single week. We can have breaks. I know you're trying to grow the sport, and it is growing. You're on ESPN. You're on ESPN Plus. You're probably the number one reason why people buy ESPN Plus. But you don't want to fatigue the viewers. You don't want to fatigue your fighters, which is honestly you're starting to see the fatigue of the fighters. They don't want to fight month after month. He wants to milk Alex Pereira. You watch him even say like, "Hey, I think I'm done for a couple months. Like, you probably won't see me till next year." So something needs to happen because these let's be honest, these shitty main cards. Your boy ain't. I mean, I bought 2 of them this year. It's not looking like I'm gonna buy any next year. It's gonna be either a bar or go to the movie theaters. Shout out Cinemark. But yeah. Only other thing I wanted to talk about was GOAT James, 4 straight trip dubs, Lawrence. I don't know if you heard the news, but 4 straight trip dubs for a 39-year-old. Every single trip dub resulted in a win. LeBron's been playing well. AD's been playing well. I think he dropped, 40 against the Spurs the other night? He had another good game against the Grizz, I want to say. I think they played the Grizz Saturday again. Or no, played the Pelicans, played well. 31-14. They always play well against the Pelicans. Yeah, honestly, Lawrence, this is pretty early, but Lakers are 9-4, playing really, really well, undefeated at home. I feel good about my prediction, them being a top 3, top 4 seed.
Okay, I mean, as long as you feel confident in it, I won't say I'm the same confidence as you, but I think in a long season, they'll come back down to earth a little bit. I just don't think it's sustainable due to what we've known in the past about some of their players.
Fair enough. You've seen JJ Pitt, D'Lo on the bench. Cam Reddish is now starting for mainly some defense. So I like that move right there. I think that really got them re-energized because they had a little skid a couple weeks ago, but they seemingly getting back on track. Can't say the same thing about my Heatles. They look like they suck. They think they're down by 12-0 against Philly. So
yeah, not ideal for me, but it is what it is.
Yeah, we play each other this week in fantasy. We'll see. It's still it's only the first day. Hopefully I won't beat you too bad.
I'm used to it at this point this season so far.
Fair enough. That's all I had. Did you have anything else you want to cover?
No, sir.
All right, with that, we're going to head on out, guys. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for listening on Spotify, all that good stuff. MTL Sports, episode 130. We'll catch you guys on Thursday. Peace out.